Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the Skymaster F18 assembly build series. Luna's in the background. If this is your first time finding my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, give the video a thumbs up, and making good progress on the F18. We are focusing on the cockpit in this video. I don't know how much more will fit in, but the cockpit is our primary focus, and we'll see how long it goes. That's it. So let's dive into this. The plane is very, very close to being complete. I have a feeling that in my previous video I said we would be wrapped up in one more video. I don't think so. It's probably going to take 2, maybe 3 more videos, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, guys, let's dive in and continue with progress. All right, guys, so we are moving into the cockpit section of this build. Now, the Skymaster cockpits are honestly not great quality. They're okay. They're quite heavy, and they are quite brittle. You can see all these pieces down here, and I will be honest and show you exactly what happened. But basically, if you're going to cut this stuff, be very, very careful, because even using a Dremel, it'll just shatter on you. But anyways, this is the rear cockpit. They've got this ejection seat mechanism thing, which doesn't need to be there because we've got that one. But anyways, we're going to do some cutting around that thing. Pulled this guy off. Actually, this one fell off because it's only held on with a couple dabs of glue. You can see the backside there. They just put it together with cardboard and stuff. They work. They're okay. Now, part of the problem that we ran into, before we get into this one, let's look at the instructions. Here's the cockpit instructions. 1 page, cut cockpit to fit fuselage and front nose gear, secure with 2 screws, check that canopy cleat of the cockpit, trim if needed, install pilot. I wish it was that easy. It definitely isn't that easy. And the pictures are terrible. So Skymaster, if you do watch this video, I would throw it out there. I would be happy to write you another manual. I would be happy. Obviously, we'd need some compensation. But if by chance you happen to watch this video, let's work on a better manual. Okay, guys, so this is the front section. Now, I have already trimmed a little bit off of this. It used to be just as wide as this guy. And as I'm trimming it, you've got pieces falling out, like this molding piece, glue joint piece, which was in here, and that's fallen out. So we'll glue that back in, and we've got quite a bit of work to do on these cockpit pieces. I was cutting this, that shattered. The front part here, I actually separated this with just an X-Acto blade. You can see the glue dots there. But as I was cutting this piece, it shattered as well. So we've got to glue that piece back on, which is right there. And yeah, there's quite a bit of work to do on this thing. Anyways, guys, I have a general idea of what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. But I will try and show you as best as possible as we go through this. Step number 1 is going to be gluing the pieces back on, but step number 1 is going to be fitting this into the front of the aircraft, in that front windshield area, because this we're going to have separate from the cockpit piece. Now, I think what's going to happen is we're going to cut this just proud of the lip, and then we're going to make wooden pieces sitting in here that piece can slide into, and then probably 1 or 2 screws. We'll kind of figure that out as we go, but have to obviously add a fastening mechanism. But that's kind of the general idea, but for right now, I am just working on some basic touch-up things, fixing cracked pieces, and stuff like that. All right, and fixing this stuff, guys, is fairly easy as long as you can get those pieces matched up perfectly, which in this case I did. You can probably still see the crack, but anyways, it's right along there, and it goes like that. So I was able to get that matched up 100%. We tape it from the outside so it's a perfect fit, and then we'll use shoe goop on the inside, because shoe goop sticks to pretty much anything. So as per usual, we'll be using trusty bent screwdriver to apply the shoe goop, and we'll do that and let it cure. All right, guys, the rear piece has been cut out. I still have a little bit of sanding to do there, but that's cut out. Anyways, what I've gone and done is I've gone and marked a line at the front, or a mark at the back and the front, and then just drawn a straight line. Now, when you look at the cockpit itself, it's kind of got a curve to it, so the straight line is going to be a little bit more aggressive, but I have gone over the edge. You can see there and there a little bit. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to cut these lines, and then we'll probably have to cut a little bit more off, but at least that's a conservative line where we have to cut. Now, I'm thinking I could cut this off, put a screw through the back into this area, or I could also put a screw in the top. So we'll have to figure that out, exactly how it's going to work best. But just showing you guys, I guess, all the options and stuff that we're going through here. So anyways, that's what we're doing next. So I'm going to cut these strips off and see how it fits. Alright guys, so I'll just show you where we're at right now. We've got a little bit of repairs to do before we go any further. So basically we've also cut the back piece there as well too. We're probably going to leave that little overhang, and then we're going to put screws through the back. So I do need to add a little piece of wood on both sides, right in this area. Right back here, just to take up the space that the cockpit needs. And then what we're going to do is we're basically going to add a block glued to the side of this area and the underside of this area, and just trying to figure out what's the best place to do it. I think if we do it up here, because we have to think about these inserts for the canopy, right? So those are marked out here as far as the slots. So ideally I'd want to have that supported on the front, but we can't because we've got the front area to deal with, right? So that gives you an idea what we're up against. So if we put 2 screws back here, that would work. The other thing too is if we just put the 2 screws in the back, just having those blocks in the front should be plenty to support any weight this way. And so maybe I'll just probably use those 2 screws in the back, and then we'll see how that works. But we do need those supporting blocks glued in, and they'll have to be glued in between the cockpit area. So anyways guys, that's what we're doing. I'm just going to do these repairs. So we've got to fill in this area. I'm just going to mix some 5-minute epoxy with micro balloons, and as I was sanding this piece out, because there was a buildup from the molding right there, as I was sanding that out, that broke. So we've got that to fix. We've got this piece to glue back in, and so I just got to mix up a little bit of that stuff to do those repairs, and then from there I'll be working on putting the blocks in place. All right, guys. So pretty sure I've got everything figured out as far as what we want to do here. So you've already seen what I've done to this one. The front cockpit, you really have to cut a lot away. I mean, it used to come out to here, and we're almost cutting it completely flush, and there's a lot of cutting going on. So I also had to trim the actual fuselage, because the cockpit is quite wide here. If you left it the original width, it actually doesn't fit in. The base there doesn't fit in. So also cut away the bottom piece, so the leg for the front nose, because it doesn't compress, that's got space to go. So basically this front cockpit, you can see how brittle it is. I was being super careful with the Dremel, and it just shatters, but quite frustrating. Alright, so front cockpit, we are going in something like that. So it's actually going to sit underneath the rails, which is going to work good. and that gives us plenty of room for that front piece to fit in. And so that should work just perfect. So I'm not overly worried. Right now about fitting the front piece in. We'll figure that out after. But the way we are going to assemble this cockpit, so let's say we want to put the cockpit back in after doing something. We'd put this piece in first. Okay, and we're actually going to trim these side pieces so they sit flush with the fuselage. So we've got a little bit of trimming left to do, but I just wanted to get this lined up. So you basically would put this piece in, you'd slide the front in, I believe, or the front would be in, this would go in afterwards. Yeah, that's how it's going to work. The front goes in, this rear cockpit goes in, and then this piece is going to go in, and there's going to be 2 screws that go into blocks that sit there. So that's going to hold the rear cockpit in and everything together. We're also, I'm gluing in some wood strips back here just to take up the space, but we're going to have 2 screws in the back of the rear cockpit piece. Now, primarily, the reason the back is so important is because once we get everything lined up, we've got these hooks to install, right, for the canopy latch system. So I need this to be nice and solid, not move at all, because that's part of the canopy system. So the rear is extremely important, and so that's how it's going to work in my mind. So I've got some gluing to do. Going to get these pieces clamped and glued in to place. I did not do any of the other touch-up items on the cockpits just because I knew that we'd be cutting a lot more off. So that actually worked out well. I'm glad I didn't do that, and we'll probably save that as a last step. So anyways, I'm going to glue these pieces in, and we need to let those cure before we can continue. Alright guys, so the next step for me was to get the this portion of the cockpit installed, the front piece. And this is pretty straightforward. I just use hot glue. So one of these little hobby glue guns with the hot glue sticks. And the nice thing about using that is it dries really quickly, and it holds things quite well. And you know, if I was needing to pull this out, I could get it out no problem without damaging anything. So I'm just using this to kind of temporarily get this front cockpit piece installed. Once I'm happy with it, then I'll probably go in and add a little bit of shoe goop to the contact points just to make it more secure. So this is step number 1. Step number 2, we're going to work on getting that front cockpit piece in and out, and making a mount for the front cockpit piece. So that's the next thing I'm going to work on. Not 100% sure on how we're going to do that yet, but the other pieces are done being glued and nice and secure for the rear cockpit. Anyways, let's see what we can do about the front. Alright guys, because there's no instructions with this thing, it's just honestly a lot of trial and error and fitting and not fitting. And anyways, I think we've got everything lined up where we want to now. So this is where our block is that I glued in, and we're going to have to add another block, or I'm going to I think add another block here. And because I want to put another screw through there. I just don't want this cockpit sliding at all. I don't think it'll be an issue, because my idea is to put a cross brace, because that tub where the legs are needs to be raised up. So if we glue a cross brace in there, then we can tuck it up against the tub, so it should sit tightly. So maybe I don't need to glue in the second tabs there. So maybe what I'll do is I'll glue that cross brace first, but everything looks like it's really close to fitting very, very well. And then this piece goes in here, so obviously we still have to trim all that, but I think I'm going to cut a little bit of length off of this piece so we don't have quite as much overhang, but really close. So going to glue that cross brace in while this is all sitting here. I've got some extra sanding to do and stuff, and then we've got a bunch of cleanup work to do, but really close. Alright guys, so what I ended up doing for the front cockpit is gluing a cross brace in there, which is just on the underside of that little bump out piece, kind of half circle piece in the front of the tub. So anyways, we're going to let that cure, and hopefully that works out good. Alright guys, so with everything out, you can see the cross brace there. I used 5-minute high sol to install it, and that worked good. I'm just going to mix up a little bit more and just touch up the areas, just because there's a gap on the bottom here on the one side. So we'll add a little bit of reinforcement there just to make sure that that doesn't come off. Okay guys, a couple little points here to point out to you. So one of the benefits of having the I don't know what this thing's called, but let's just call it the front cockpit area. Being a little bit proud of the front pins is when this thing closes. Okay, so there's a couple things going on here. First of all, the latches are holding the cockpit from going side to side. Okay, the 3 latches, the 3 hooks back here. Now, we've got a couple important things going on up here. In order for this to work properly, our lock has to go down and those pins have to engage. Well, one of the benefits of having that front cockpit going a little bit past is you can actually use that to line up the pins. So what I've done, so there is it fully closed. All I was doing was pushing the lock down at the back here. Basically what I've done is I've sanded the inside of this primary canopy area, and it lines up nicely with the pins and everything, and basically created a guide. Okay, I'll show you exactly what I mean here. All right, so hopefully you can see that on the end, but so I've sanded the end of it, probably the last inch, right there. Okay, and added a nice kind of bevel on both sides, and what that does is when the cockpit comes down and has to interlock with that front canopy area, works as a guide. So just a little tidbit for you. Obviously you don't want to be messing around with that every single time. Alright guys, got the paint touch-ups done on the cockpits. I actually had a matching color that worked perfectly. It was in an aerosol can, so I just sprayed it into the lid and then touched it up. So that worked good. So what I'll do is I'll go through the installation process here with you. That area is obviously the front cockpit is mounted. I did put some shoe goop in the sides here that I used the hot glue before, and use some tape just to let the shoe goop cure. So that's going to do the front section here. And then in the back section, I had a little bit of hot glue splooge up here. There's another dot over here, but you can't see it. But anyways, I got that out. That's the nice thing about the hot glue, is it comes off quite easily. Just use a long screwdriver and pried it off. And then I put some shoe goop in the bottom here, and so that's curing right now as well. And you can see trusty bent screwdriver in there holding it in place. Love trusty bent screwdriver. Alright guys, so step number 1 to get cockpit installed is we've got our ledge in there. So we need to get the cockpit on the ledge, which works quite well because it's in like 2 steps, and I've got it underneath the big step. So that works good. So the front piece is quite easy to install, and quite straightforward. So it actually worked out better than I thought it would. Now what we've done is we've got the rear portion, which has to slip underneath this portion, which holds it up. This is the lead that I'm using, just plugged into the X-Bus port to set up the wings. That's one of the nice things of what X-Bus is, you can just have one thing while you're setting up a wing plugged into the receiver. So anyways, I'm going to move that to the bottom of the airplane. Alright, now we've got the rear cockpit portion, which again is very easy to install. We just slip it. It's always easier when you have 2 hands, but we just slip it underneath the front cockpit and pops in, no problem. So before we go any further, we do have a little bit of trimming to get done, so we're going to trim these edges a little bit better so they sit just inside that ridge. Once we get that trimmed up, then we'll put 2 screws in the back to hold that. And then we've got the front portion here, which has already been cut. That fits in there like that. So we'll probably have a little bit of cutting on the edges to do as well. And when that's all installed, then we will put the 2 screws through there. All right, guys, so all the trimming's been done here. We're sitting nice and flush. We're actually sitting on those little wooden tabs that pop out from the fuselage. Next thing to do is to put a screw through each one of these guys and just get the rear position fixed. And once that's done, then we'll work on fitting the front piece, putting a screw through there. All right, guys, canopy, cockpit is all complete. We've got 4 screws holding it in place. So 2 in the back and 2 in the front. Now this canopy or cockpit is really, really solid. It's not going anywhere. Turned out really, really well. So we've got the also the cross brace in the front holding everything together. So if you do want to take this cockpit out, it's extremely simple. 2 screws, this comes off. 2 screws, the rear comes out, front just comes out once everything else is done. So what's left to do is we've got to make the slots for the actual canopy itself, right? Now, when you think about this, before the cockpit was installed, this canopy closed no problem because this width of these hooks is set to the airframe. So what we want to do though is we want to make sure that this closes, everything works without any assistance from you. It should be all automatic. So what we're going to do is we're going to make these rear hooks, or the opening for the rear hooks, a little bit wider just to get things engaged, and then the front ones will be more accurate. Now as this closes, once the canopy actually gets to about here, this front piece guides it in place as well too. So there's a bunch of things going on here that help this canopy to close. Now when I'm talking about opening this up more, I'm talking about like 1 millimeter of the airframe and then a little bit of the cockpit, right? So there's not very much that we're doing. But anyways, guys, we still have a little bit of cleanup to do, touching up some of the areas, painting in black, things like that. Like we'll paint this little gray piece black, the screw heads black. But the gist of it is done. Once I get these little slots opened up and working, I will show you the final product. All right, guys, we haven't done all of our touch-ups in the cockpit yet. I've just been working on the programming for the canopy and opening up the slots and everything. But I think we are all done. So here's what it looks like working all by itself. So you can see the slots there. There we go. I'll give you a different view on it just so you have it, but it's using the gear controller, which is set to a 10-second timer. So. And here's the back view. There we go. So these hooks are nice. They do add some stability, and then might be hard to see, but because that front piece has a hook underneath, also provides some added protection from the canopy opening. So, but that's it. Happy with the way that turned out, and I think it worked out really, really well. Took a lot of cycles, a lot of tries, a lot of messing around with the different curve positions in the 28X, but happy with the way it worked out. All right, guys, that's the end of this build video. Hopefully you enjoyed the cockpit installation video. You got some ideas from it, and if you're building this aircraft, hopefully it helps you out as well too. So that's everything. We're going to be installing the pilots, but probably as a last step, just because we have some touch-ups and stuff to do on the cockpit and I've got to take the cockpit back out to get the antennas for the receiver and everything set up. So that needs to happen as well too. But basically the cockpit installation is complete. So if you guys have any questions for me about this, make sure you list them down below. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't done so already and you've been watching my videos, you might as well hit that subscribe button as well. Don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified when I release new videos. That's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I think we've got one final video to release for the last steps of just putting all the ordnance and the wings and stuff together, and that'll be the last video for this this build series. So stay tuned for that one, and we'll see you next time.